there's only one episode we did that I still have regrets about.
What's that?
In the Metroid 1 episode, I mixed up our ideologies while writing the script, and I basically read what should have been your lines while you read mine.
Oh, no, you're talking about that one review where we sat in each other's chairs and pretended to beat each other the entire time.
Well, yes, that's exactly what happened.
So for clarity, it was me who said that Metroid 1 is just a 3 out of 10 since it's so rough around the edges and difficult to enjoy.
Of course, and it was me who said it was a 7 out of 10 for taking enormous strides forward in game design and establishing a brand new exciting genre. It's nice to finally retcon that mistake.
You mean properly explain it so that nothing went over the audience's head?
Obviously.
The only mistake made was viewers mistaking us for each other because we sat in different chairs.
I'm also prepared to gaslight my way out of this.
Do we have to explain everything to you?
I'm offended you can't tell us apart.
What are we to you? Oompa Loompas?
Now let's discuss the GBA remake, you oblivious wiener sponge.
What's a wiener sponge?
Metroid Zero Mission is a mess.
Whoa, what? I thought you loved Metroid.
Passionately. That's why I find the sloppy design of Zero Mission so egregious.
Zero Mission is loads more playable than the original.
Sure, but that comes at the cost of completely misunderstanding the original's design philosophy to a disturbing degree.
I'd say it's at least the best way for new players to experience the first game.
Hard no.
Come on then, what is it?
I'd first recommend Metroid Plus Saving, a mod of the original that adds in dozens of tweaks and quality of life features like stackable beams and a scrollable minimap, all while still running on the original hardware.
But the NES is still uncomfortably janky.
And for you, I would recommend a Super Metroid hack called Retroid that uses Super as a framework to completely rebuild the original game. It's not perfect, but if the control eats you up that much, then it's a definite improvement over the NES.
Where does Zero Mission fall in this?
Then I'd recommend the original.
Don't listen to him.
And finally, Zero Mission as a last resort.
I promise it's good.
Good for nothing.
Trust me.
Trust me.
Metroid Zero Mission is a full remake of the original NES game built for the Game Boy Advance, coming a couple years after Fusion. It uses Fusion as a framework to completely rebuild and recontextualize the first game.
So the problems of Fusion get exacerbated, all the while sucking away the game's non-linearity.
So you'll explore a reimagined planet Zebes complete with new bosses and incorporating new upgrades from the rest of the series.
With Fusion's intense gravity, forceful hand-holdy progression, and redundant text barf.
One thing at a time, Hamster.
Alright, so first of all, your control is extremely stiff. You jump and fall incredibly quickly, making combat in especially certain boss fights unnecessarily frustrating.
You'll get used to it, but the addition of Fusion's power grip will allow you to hang on ledges and climb up, so everything doesn't have to be so spastically fast.
Also, unlike the original, you will continually run into Chozo statues that serve no other purpose than opening the path forward and placing an obvious marker on your map, telling you precisely where to go next. And you can't skip it.
To be fair, it doesn't tell you exactly how to get there, and though the game is extremely linear, you can still escape and sequence break it quite a bit with some in-depth knowledge of some obtuse tactics.
It also sucks when you frequently get unknown items that do nothing but sit in your inventory for pretty much the entire game, and once you finally get them activated all at once, by the way, the payoff isn't even almost worth the disappointment in gathering them.
Yeah, lore-wise, it's because Samus's current suit wasn't equipped to utilize those upgrades, and it's not until the end game when she acquires a new legendary power suit that she can utilize them. Game-wise, I agree, that's just not fun.
And call me an idiot, but I get annoyingly stuck multiple times every time I play this game, and it's always passing one convoluted hurdle or another.
Like those stupid bugs you gotta roll around in so they can crawl all over your body, and then run into a completely different location, jump in a vat of acid towards an impervious pulsing vine, just so the apparently indestructible bugs can eat it, even though the game gave you no indication of that working whatsoever.
Yes! Who wants that? It's a Metroid game! Let me actually use my own found tools to overcome obstacles, for crying out loud. Did you even play the original?
At least the new boss fights are a welcome addition. I especially like the huge rumbling centipede thing that surprises you occasionally in Brinstar. If only his name wasn't literally Charge Beam Beast. Rolls right off the tongue.
But most of these boss fights kinda suck when compared to the rest of the series, especially the last two.
Oh, we should mention, after you defeat Mother Brain and escape, where the original game would have ended, this game continues with Samus's ship being shot down by space pirates. She loses access to her power suit for some unexplained reason, and has to infiltrate the nearby pirate mothership and Chozo ruins in hopes of commandeering a new power suit.
So now you're suddenly playing a stealth game as Zero Suit Samus, armed with nothing but a wimpy paralyzer pistol, forced to sneak past pirate forces unnoticed. Yeah, we're kind of reviewing 2 games in one here.
If you're caught, you'll be hounded by powerful space pirates firing flurries of their weaponry regardless of you wearing armor to withstand it or not. They want you dead anyway, and this part is actually really fun.
Yeah, it's easily the best part of the game.
Yeah, I know, right?
Makes me wish they instead opted to make it a full-blown game of its own rather than slap it on the end of an already half-baked Zero Mission.
Oh.
Zero Mission's map is way smaller than the NES's take on the same space. Had they just fleshed it out enough and then also released the Zero Suit stealth concept as its own full game, I'd probably have no complaints. Instead, we have 2 half-baked conflicting ideas fused together.
You know, the only thing I don't like about this is that it forces players to fight Mother Brain thinking they are finishing the game when they clearly know they didn't get all the missiles and energy tanks, not knowing that the rest are actually found after that point of no return.
So if they did happen to miss some stuff before beating Mother Brain, they just locked themselves out of a 100% game file without even knowing it. Man, this and the unknown items, Zero Mission just goes out of its way to disappoint you.
If you can make it to that point, you really don't need any more pickups to beat the game. It's not like Fusion where you can easily render your game unwinnable.
So the stealth parts are fun, but boy, howdy are those bosses in this part of the game trash.
Yeah, so eventually you'll fight this annoying mirror ball puzzle thing where you're the one actually damaging yourself until you figure out what's actually going on, but after getting the new power suit from it, you satisfyingly obliterate the space pirates that pursued you along the way, and that always feels great.
And then it all comes to a head with one of the worst final bosses I have ever experienced.
Yeah, so apparently Ridley was building a giant robot of himself for reasons, but he never finished the wings and legs, so this hulking unfinished Ridley mech claws its way over to you, and you've got to destroy it, I guess. Because the door's locked or something.
This fight is so horrendous because Mecha Ridley is only vulnerable to missiles in a tiny red spot on his chest. Problem is his arms and jaw are almost constantly blocking this line of sight, so even figuring out that this is a vulnerability is another painful experience, but actually shooting it is another test of frustration where your fast fall speed will drive you crazy as you constantly jump and miss all your openings.
Even still, everything post Mother Brain was bonus content, and for the most part, it was all really cool! Minus the boss fights.
So cool, it's spat in the face of what makes Metroid Metroid.
Come on, it's got Samus fighting aliens on planet Zebes with all sorts of series staples added for even more authenticity.
Metroid 1 is a long, huge maze of a game where the goal is to constantly venture into unexplored territory in hopes of acquiring permanent upgrades for Samus. The planet itself is the unforgiving, treacherous labyrinth it is to reward players for engaging with its completely open design framework. Zero Mission isn't even almost that.
If you're turned off by the original game's jank, don't listen to him and just play it.
What kind of remake completely removes the entire point of the game?
Are you gonna be like this for all the other segments too?
Absolutely, now get off my lawn.
Zero Mission takes on a new colorful graphic novel aesthetic for the series we haven't really seen since.
If you wanted your Metroid to look like a goofy cartoon, then this one's for you.
I like it. Also, we got these cool animated cutscenes introducing bosses and connecting story segments for added suspense and context.
Those aren't really nice. Though I prefer the painterly realism style of Super, I can't disagree that the cutscenes add quite a lot to the experience.
Glad to hear you're coming around.
And maybe it's just me, but everything feels a little too zoomed in for comfortable gameplay.
Alright, Grandpa, now let's get you to bed. Compared to the original, which we've already reviewed, Zero Mission adds to the original story with cinematic cutscenes for added suspense, and for the most part, it's all really effective.
It also added large blocks of redundant text that achieve nothing other than wasting the player's time. Just because Fusion's monologue crimes got eclipsed by Other M, make no mistake, Zero Mission is written just as poorly.
By this point, Super Metroid was a decade old. How do these people not understand how compelling their own storytelling became while devoid of any dialogue past the introduction?
Good to hear you coming around.
Truth is, I never sat well with the blabby text in the GBA games. Explain to me why we needed the entire cutscene we just watched explained to us in full written detail. Like, what does that actually add to the story?
Might have been important to instead mention why or how Samus even lost her suit, considering it's the sole cause of the entire final quarter of the game. Or how this is her first mission when she's already known across the galaxy as the most experienced bounty hunter for this job.
Of course we don't get that, we just get a screen full of redundancy and an awkward opportunity for Samus to call this her Zero Mission. Cause verbalizing a title drop totally isn't seen as the most amateur writing cliche conceivable, my man.
The story is like watching watching a bad video game movie. The setting and characters are all there, but it's a colossal disconnect between out-of-touch directors visualizing fanfiction and understanding the nuance behind a video game's experience. Metroid on NES is a long, silent horror movie, and Zero Mission is an in-your-face 2000s action flick where it suddenly switches gears near the end to pad out the story since they realized it wasn't long enough. It's like if the rest of this video was suddenly a classic noir police interrogation for absolutely no reason.
Now listen here, you wisecracking numbskull. You're gonna tell me the truth, or so help me God, I'll have you locked up for the rest of your miserable life. You understand? Yeah, boss. Now can you, sir, tell me the difference between this here Nintendo Entertainment System and this Nintendo Game Boy Advance portable gaming system? Well, the Game Boy's just all around more powerful. It's got better hardware inside, you see? Wrong! The speakers on this Game Boy Advance are about as muffled as a Ford jalopy on a Sunday morning, whereas this Nintendo plays clear as a whistle.
What are you talking about? That's not fair. The Nintendo's using the speakers on the telly while the Game Boy's using its own speakers. Forget about it.
Hold it right there. Explain to me on how my boys were able to extract this tape from both sources. Take a listen to this. Confounded contraption.
It's a Nintendo, all right.
Now here's the same song, the very same song, mind you, played on the Game Boy Advance.
Well, it certainly sounds a hell of a lot better.
Better to an untrained ear, I say. This here noise is just about as lousy as a ball game in a downpour.
The melodies are all the same, man. It's the speakers. I tells ya, it's the speakers.
Kids these days, there's not an ounce of respect left in them. They're all the same.
Look, boss, ain't none of what you heard from the private dick matters, and I'll tell you why.
Nah, how about instead you actually explain what any of this fancy new stuff actually adds to the original Metroid for the Nintendo Entertainment System?
Just look at it. The Technicolor graphics are better. The control and features are objectively better, if I do say so myself.
So let's say I ask, say, top-of-the-line New York chef to try and create a new, better American cheeseburger. And in full defiance of God, the man slaps whipped cream and colored jimmies on top of that there cheeseburger.
What are you talking about?
Sure, the kiddies will think that's better, but no culinary enthusiast with their salt would so much as honor that madman. It's a joke! A sham!
That actually sounded pretty good to me, boss.
Quiet, you bonehead! I asked you if it didn't outperform the original and render it obsolete, then what's the point of a remake in the first place?
Probably money, I suppose.
See, now you're talking some sense, Buster.
The positive gamer in me thinks Metroid Zero Mission is good enough fun for a mean 7 out of 10. It takes an otherwise rough experience and makes it a heck of a lot better, and adds loads of new stuff into the mix for better or worse.
Now listen here. The critical gamer in me isn't about to respect Metroid Zero Mission when it doesn't even respect its own origins with a dwindling 4 out of 10. In many ways, it's an undeniable improvement, but under closer inspection, it's a sloppy, amputated, misinformed sham of its former ambition.
Golly, boss, but what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Metroid Zero Mission in the comments below.
I tell ya, the original Metroid can be rough, but if you can see past that to appreciate everything that it gets right that Zero Mission doesn't even understand, then you're just playing with yourself.
Now that we're back in the Technicolor, I can finally show y'alls this cool new poster that I got to put together. A little gift for myself for Christmas. It's really cool.
This here is actually a bullet, not a cigar. I don't know where I found it, honestly. It was in my drawer. And this, by the way, is actually the soundtrack to the first Pokemon movie.
I love NES stuff, can't you tell? Like, this is really cool. Anyway, I'm sure none of you actually care about that. So hopefully I'm not the only person in the world who doesn't like Metroid Zero Mission that much. That's the thing, like, just that much. I just think there's better ways that you could play it, and honestly, like, if they were gonna do another Metroid 1 remake, I would be thrilled, because I think there's a lot of work to be done on that. But that's just me! Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more, and use the links in the description and nominate your own episode. And thank you to all of our Patreon members, Arrow, Aspen, Crystal, Said Genio, Laura, and Squad Fam. Now get out of here. Forget about it. Do you